I think Red 40 needs to get the same PR team that PDRN has.
1,000,000%. Call up the firm.
Because do you guys know what it is?
I haven't seen that many people talk about what we're going to talk about regarding this topic. It's 95 to 98% genetically similar to human DNA, which means that it can function as a building block to repair our cells without triggering an immune response. That's why salmon was chosen.
I don't want to suggest this, but you know what I'm going to suggest. Let's think about what we're doing to this fish, all right?
Yeah. Everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beauty by the Beaker. I'm Sadie.
And I'm Natalie.
And we are both cosmetic chemists.
We are certified. There's no certification, but
yeah, you can trust us. And
this is also the podcast where science gets a hot new makeover.
It is. By us too, yours truly.
Okay, guys, so before we get into the episode, I am just popping in here from editing because right after we filmed this episode, we realized there were a few things that we never actually clarified that we think really need more than just text on the screen to correct. And I'm going to be jumping in here a couple times while editing to give you guys a little extra context.
This week, we are back in the science salon for another fun little topic. 2 weeks ago, we talked about Red 40, maybe our most controversial episode ever.
Maybe.
This episode is on a very trendy topic, and I feel like it could be controversial because I haven't seen that many people talk about what we're going to talk about regarding this topic.
Yeah.
So anyway, today we're going to be talking about PDRN. Unless you live under a rock, you've probably heard about this ingredient. It's basically swept the globe, I feel like, especially in the last couple of years. It's become super popular, and I feel like every single day I see a new product launch with PDRN in it. But I don't necessarily feel like a lot of people understand what PDRN is, how it actually works, and why it's being advertised as the newest miracle ingredient.
Yeah. I think Red 40 needs to get the same PR team that PDRN has.
1,000,000%. Call up the firm.
Because do you guys know what it is?
Yeah, seriously.
I think it might be worse than a little petrol atom.
Okay, a little crude oil in my Cheetos. Whatever.
At least it's not this.
Yeah, no. PDRN is...
Okay, what is it?
PDRN is a little acronym. It's short for polydeoxyribonucleotide. And basically, it's a mixture of a bunch of DNA fragments.
Yeah. Well, DNA is deoxyribonucleic acids, right?
Is this just saying many DNA pieces? Poly?
Yes. So it's basically just the DNA comes from the source, and then they make a polymer out of it. So instead of being like a DNA strand, they're DNA nucleotides that they polymerize.
Right.
So like it's kind of
they
like
just create like a chain out of it, like a new chain.
Yeah. So they're like synthetically chaining DNA molecules together.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that because I'm not a biochemist.
I only know that because I recently went to an SEC meeting and we talked about this at the meeting a little bit.
Oh.
I was like, what is PDRN?
Yeah.
Like, I know that it's salmon sperm. We'll get there, I'm sure. But they explained that part of it.
Yeah, so it's basically just a mixture of all of these little chains of DNA. And they range from roughly 50 to 2,000 kilodaltons. A kilodalton is just like a really small unit of measurement. You can't see it with your eyes. The DNA is typically extracted from salmon or trout sperm. And the main...
It's one way to get DNA.
That is what... Yes. That is one way. The main reason they use it from salmon or trout is because it actually started out being extracted from human placentas, but then they switched over to salmon sperm. The reason for that is because there's not a lot present in human placentas to even begin with.
Yeah, it probably also is a little bit harder to source, and ethically there's probably some considerations, but also, I mean, I'm not a salmon and I don't know what a salmon is capable of, but I am a woman and I know you can't produce a placenta every day.
Yeah, that's true. Huge sourcing issue there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think both the sourcing and also the ethical implications are probably why we switched to salmon.
Is it I can't. There's so many. Is this animal cruelty?
Have you tried asking the salmon?
Does the salmon want this?
Yeah. I didn't look into how it's extracted that way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know how
Theoretically, the salmon or trout lives through the sperm extraction process.
Yeah. Yes. I would think so. I would really hope so.
So,
wait. Salmon spawn and then they die?
Oh no.
Oh my god. I'm not laughing at salmon dying, but
no, it's tragic. I'm laughing because it's so sad. Is that true?
Wait,
This is what we need to know.
Okay, it's me again from editing. I'm not entirely sure where to put this in this conversation, but we did fail to mention in the episode that currently most sources of PDRN are a byproduct of the food industry. So the fish life is already going to end, and this actually just uses more of the animal. However, that does not change the fact that it still isn't vegan and that it's overall not super sustainable because it comes from an animal. But we give a lot of grace to crude oil and its byproducts over here, so I think we should probably do the same for the salmon.
Can a salmon... Is spawning like the politically correct term for whatever they're doing?
I don't know.
It looks like Pacific salmon breed only once. Atlantic salmon can spawn multiple times.
Okay.
But only 3.8% of them survive to spawn again.
What? That's sad.
Are they one pump chumps?
Life stage cheat sheet for Pacific salmon.
Thank God.
They die?
Yeah.
That's really sad. Guys, we can't be doing this anymore. Not only is the science bad, we'll get there, I'm sure.
Well, that is, okay, we can just have this conversation now. We don't have to wait to have it later. There is a massive ethical issue, clearly even worse than I thought originally, with collecting this stuff from salmon. Because one, I guess
their life's work.
It's their life's work. So that you can put it on your face. And also...
For what?
Literally. It also is just very interesting to me that most people are anti-animal cruelty when it comes to cosmetics.
Yeah.
Like they specifically look for cruelty-free cosmetics and things that haven't been tested on animals. So what about things that kill the animal?
Yeah.
That's okay?
You're not going to use beeswax from the bees that live in captivity?
Literally. And that live and just make it.
They just make it because that's just what they're doing.
Exactly.
But you're going to
put this on your face?
Let's think about what we're doing to this fish, all right?
Yeah. Is it just different because fish aren't like cute and cuddly? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I just...
If this was a dog...
Can you imagine?
Why does it make it okay if it's a salmon?
Literally. Well, also, now might be a good time to mention that you're not actually putting straight up salmon ejaculate on your face.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very true.
There is a whole purification process.
It's also polymerized.
It's also, it's turned into something completely different.
Right.
But basically, they collect the semen, then they separate the DNA from the semen, and then they fragment it, and then like redo it. After the whole purification process and they've created the chains, it's 95 to 98% genetically similar to human DNA, which means that it can function as a building block to repair our cells without triggering an immune response because it's so close to our DNA. That's why salmon was chosen, because it's so close to ours. Again, think about the ethics behind that.
Looks just like us too.
They do.
Okay, but also, I don't want to suggest this.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I'm going to suggest?
I'm scared.
Could humans not volunteer DNA of the same source for purification?
I don't know.
Consensually?
Yeah. That is it's an interesting question.
Yeah. There's probably some laws against like making skincare products out of human byproduct.
Yeah, but like we can use like stem cells and stuff. Like there are human...
Are they human stem cells?
I think that you can use human stem cells in skincare products. I just don't know if people do. Because like what's the selling point for that?
Probably
but
whatever
I
the
guess,
same thing
yeah,
PDRN.
I guess you'd think there's not a market and then you see PDRN.
Yeah.
Like, well, the salmon can do it. I think it's easier to market that it comes from salmon semen than from human.
Yeah, it's several degrees further away from...
Yeah.
Okay, just popping in one more time to tell you that it is in fact illegal in the US to use human extracts of any kind in skincare. We don't mind that rule at all. Although skincare products don't use human stem cells, they will use what's called stem cell conditioned media, which is basically just the jelly that the stem cells are grown on, but no actual human tissues and no live cells can ever be used in cosmetics.
We've made so many scientific discoveries today already. It's incredible.
It is.
Us just spreading rampant misinformation on our podcast. Okay, so you might be asking yourself, when did PDRN even become popular? Because I didn't hear about it like 5 years ago.
I've heard about it like 5 months ago.
Yeah, well, you're late to all of the skincare trends. Even when we were in the lab, there was never a PDRN project.
No.
So like clearly, and now we have multiple.
Yeah.
That's even within the last like 6 months.
Well, yeah. That's the timeline I just gave.
Oh my God, your timeline tracks. Wait, you were telling the truth? That's so funny. Yeah, I know. I just had to deduce that. Listen to me when I'm
I'm
talking
always
to you.
so late. Like a full month late.
Yeah, I knew about it a month before you. We are giggly today.
It's a second episode thing.
That's true. It's like the first episode can take 20 minutes to record, but if it's the second episode,
I also think it's a your episode thing because
True.
I have no motivation to stay on task.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I have nothing to get through here.
You don't care if I'm here for the next 5 hours.
No.
Until you're editing and then you're like,
No.
oh my God.
That's true.
Shut up.
So much worse to edit these episodes than
than normal.
Yeah.
Sorry, future Nat. Okay, so it originated in Italy in the 1980s, and back then it was considered a breakthrough in wound healing and regenerative medicine. Like I said, they first used it from human placentas, but then they switched to salmon. Then all the way in 2008, the Korean FDA approved a PDRN-based injectable. It's called Rejuvenates, or a salmon DNA injection for skin rejuvenation and repair. As of 2026, when we're recording this, it's not approved by the United States FDA, but that does not mean that companies don't use it.
Yeah.
I was actually just looking it up, and there are several med spas close to us that offer Rejuvenates for their clients, and the starting cost is like $700. So if you're interested in injecting this into your body,
it has to be that expensive so that they can cover legal fees if the FDA comes after them.
literally.
They're like, no, it's a liability thing.
Yeah, no, this is, just in case we get sued and go to prison. We have to post bail. But interest has spiked a ton, I feel like, especially within the last year. And it really just keeps growing. Like, I feel like I just continue seeing PDRN products left and right.
Yeah. Well, I think Korean skincare in general has been super popular.
It's been popping off.
I think it kind of maybe even piggybacks off of Korean sunscreens.
Probably.
Where it's like we dipped our toes in there and we're like, oh,
yeah,
they have a lot of fun things that we're not doing.
I also think the public perception around Korean beauty is that it is so much better than what we have in the United States, which I think is true for certain things. But I think that we look at their market as so much more innovative. Like, I don't feel like people knew about K-beauty like they do now 5 years ago.
Yes, totally.
So,
it's definitely like a trend.
Yeah. And I think that the trendy products in Korea are becoming trendier in the US faster.
Yes.
Because now we're looking at them for like projections.
Yeah. I think the sunscreen was kind of the gateway drug. I think also things like TikTok probably.
Yeah.
Being able to watch people do things in like rapid succession.
Yes. Yeah, the like 11-step skincare routine. Like
the first one I remember was like the ice bath facials. Oh. Do you remember that? Where you would like
stick your face in a bowl?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
I was doing that a long time ago. I didn't know that was a K-beauty thing. Interesting.
Yeah, like an ice bowl.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I think my first K-beauty product was a snail mucin toner. That was really big. Again, derived from animals.
Yeah.
So interesting how I don't know, whatever. Not much.
The animals that people don't care about, though.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess it doesn't matter.
I will say, I have so many snails in my garden, and if someone wanted to make a toner out of them,
go collect.
I would not protect them.
No. Well, I think the thing about snails is that you want to keep the snail alive in order to get the snail mucin.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could start your own line.
True. I have a lot.
They're all just waiting to be utilized. Okay. So the most important thing when it comes to PDRN is understanding the difference between topical and injectable studies.
They're not the same thing.
No, they're not.
Yeah. In our Red 40 episode, we reminded you once again that putting things inside of your body, ingesting them, not the same as putting them on your skin. Mm-hmm. Same thing actually applies for injecting them underneath your skin.
Yeah. You might not have thought of this before, but
yeah, different.
On top versus inside.
Your skin has several layers, the outermost being the oiliest. Mm-hmm. A lot of skincare ingredients don't ever pass that layer, because that's the point of it. But if you use a needle and surpass that layer, you can penetrate deeper into the skin. Fact.
So true. If you penetrate the skin, you can penetrate it. Yeah.
Try to debunk that.
Come at us in the comments. So, okay, first and foremost, I do need to shout out one of my favorite podcasts. It's the Chemist Confessions podcast. They did a couple episodes on PDRN. They did a really good job in their podcast filtering out the relevant studies from the really badly done ones. Mm-hmm. And in their episode, they also go in depth about each of the studies that are like on the better side. So I definitely recommend listening to their episode about it. We'll link it in the show notes, but it's a great resource, especially if you want to learn more about PDRN. With that being said, most of the evidence around PDRN has been done with injectables, but even then, not all of the studies are actually good studies. So one of the main ones that's referenced a lot is a study that tests PDRN's effectiveness on diabetic foot ulcers. They had two different groups. They were injecting PDRN into the ulcers of one group and then like had a placebo group where they weren't injecting anything. And they found that 37.3% of the PDRN treated group healed fully within 8 weeks compared to 18.9% in the placebo group. So that's about like twice the amount of people who saw results. Mm-hmm. And that sounds great, but you have to keep in mind that they were injecting PDRN directly into foot ulcers, which is different than putting a moisturizer with it onto your face before bed.
Right.
There was one study that applied it topically in 2004, and they applied PDRN to skin graft sites. So like people had wounds and then they put skin over them, like grafted the skin onto it. Duh. So just like how it sounded. Yeah. And they found that applying the PDRN to those areas of the skin helped it heal faster. The PDRN group epithelialized, which basically means like it starts to become covered with tissue. It's like the first stage of healing if you have a scar in 12 and a half days versus 24.45 days for the group that didn't have anything applied. But skin graft skin is very different from healthy skin, so you can't really compare the two. And also, as far as I could tell, they weren't doing a placebo that didn't have PDRN in it.
Yeah, that was going to be my first question.
Yeah, it was like, it's like applying moisturizer to one area and nothing to another area. The moisturizer's probably going to help.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been great to see this study done with both of those options.
Yes.
Nothing applied and a moisturizer with no PDRN.
Yeah, and that was like the only difference. And that is what a well-done study would have done. So I just don't think that either of those studies are very strong, but those are the ones that most people reference when they're talking about PDRN.
Interesting.
So a badly done topical study and a study about injecting PDRN into foot ulcers.
Yeah, very different than
putting a face mask on.
Yeah. I'm guessing that wound healing would be a drug claim, an OTC claim.
It is, yes.
I'm so out of practice with my OTC.
Regulatory.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changes the structure of function.
True. I do think it's interesting that PDRN is not being, I mean, kind of like last week's episode when we talked about the acne claims. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised PDRN isn't, I mean, there is some like DNA repair claims, like skin regeneration claims. Yeah. But I'm surprised that that's the angle and not more like wound healing. I know that that's a trickier one because it's an OTC claim. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, there are a lot of companies that are getting very loosey-goosey with the PDRN claims. PDRN is classified as a cosmetic ingredient. So drug claims like wound healing cannot be made.
Right.
But a lot of companies talk about regeneration, and those are claims that are coming from a study that was injecting the PDRN.
Yeah.
And so when you take claims from injectables and bleed those over into topicals, like you really are skirting the line between cosmetic and drug, because those are just two different things.
Yeah. What the two studies have in common, the injectable and the skin graft, is that you're applying it to broken skin. Mm-hmm. And so then, not surprising, because like you can't tell people to put something on an open wound unless it's an OTC product. Yep. So they can't really say like wound healing.
Yeah.
But that is kind of a far jump. These studies, I think, are interesting studies.
They're as good jumping off points.
Yeah, as a wound healing product to me. Especially if it is DNA derived. Your skin is very different in a healing stage than it is in just like a growth stage, because you're not exposing the same types of cells to the product. In those two earlier studies, they're exposing lower skin cells. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it does make sense because they can't like you can't just say put it on open wounds.
Yeah, they can't use terms like it repairs DNA or it heals wounds, but they can say things like it supports regeneration or enhances natural repair. Like those are things that like could work for cosmetic products. But yeah, I think similar to our Red 40 episode, I think there could be something here. I think like there really could be some interesting research that could be done behind the regenerative effects of PDRN. But companies are getting really loosey-goosey with the claims that they're making, and there is not data right now to back them up.
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably the biggest gripe, is it feels like PDRN is being touted as this absolute miracle ingredient. Like it just does it all.
Yeah.
And I would love it if maybe we refined what we said it did. Because there are other ingredients, like for example, hyaluronic acid, great for hydration.
Yeah.
Or retinol, great for like skin cell turnover. Mm-hmm. Most ingredients are great for like a few things. But when you start touting an ingredient as like a catch-all, it just does everything and it's going to be life-changing. It's really hard for there to be legitimacy to that.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I think if the claims that a product is making sound too good to be true, it probably is. And some of those claims might be illegal. But just watch out for that.
Yeah.
Another really big issue with PDRN, probably the biggest issue, is penetration. So when it comes to pretty much any skincare ingredient, penetration is the biggest issue. Like Nat said, we have several layers of skin. The first layer is the oiliest layer, and it's really hard to get things into the skin. In fact, that's like a huge part of formulating, is trying to figure out how to get things to penetrate deeper. Yeah. Because they just don't naturally do it very easily. It's very difficult. So there's a rule called the 500 Dalton rule. We've talked about this before. Molecules that are larger than 500 Daltons can't pass through our skin barrier, but molecules that are smaller than that are more likely to penetrate into the skin. Doesn't mean they do, but it just means they're more likely to be able to. And anything that's bigger than 500 Daltons typically just sits on the surface. It can still provide some benefits sitting there, but penetration is usually the goal. It usually does more if it's able to penetrate.
Yeah.
PDRN is a mixture of a bunch of different fragments of DNA, and that ranges anywhere from 50 to 1,500 kilodaltons. For reference, that's up to 1.5 million Daltons.
Yeah,
so
large.
Yeah, the smallest fragments are around 50,000, which last time I checked, that's a way bigger number than 500.
Yes.
I think
it's, yeah,
which is the maximum size for skin penetration.
Yeah, scientifically significant.
500 versus 50,000 is a big difference.
Yeah.
So basically PDRN, as it is right now, is way too big to penetrate into the skin. And there are technologies that exist to help the bigger molecules penetrate better. I mean, I'm not like a biochemist, but I wonder if you could fragment that even further and like make it smaller so it can penetrate better. But as of right now, on its own, it can't realistically penetrate the skin barrier well enough to do what I feel like a lot of the companies are saying it does.
Yeah. I don't know why I just thought about this with skin penetration. I feel like it's kind of similar similar to like a pair of jeans that don't fit you.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a lot of jeans, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of jeans that you probably will only wear if it's like desperate because you just don't like the way that they fit.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are probably other jeans that it's like, yeah, I can't even get my leg in this anymore. Like, I'm not putting this on my body.
No.
Like, I cannot.
Yeah, like it's physically impossible.
Yeah. There's other jeans where it's like, yeah, I could wear these jeans, but I don't want to.
I'm going to be uncomfy the whole
Yeah.
time.
So like they'll sit in your closet and you're not going to get rid of them because they still fit.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're ever going back onto your body.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of how skin penetration is. Like there are certain molecules that just won't.
Yep.
It's not going to work. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Too big. But then there are other things where it's like the molecule technically could fit through your skin, but it's not comfy. It doesn't want to.
Yeah, it's like depending on where I'm at in my cycle.
Yeah.
It might fit and it might not.
Yeah. And like depending on, you know, who else is there. Does it want to?
Exactly.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Most of the time not.
Yeah.
Because again, that's the purpose of skin. But
Yeah. Exactly. I think because that is such a big hurdle that it has to jump over. I just don't feel like the claims are matching up right now.
and keeping in mind again that the studies didn't have this issue.
Exactly. They
Didn't
were
have to overcome.
bypassing.
Right.
Another talking point I did want to mention is the idea of plant-based PDRN. It's advertised as a vegan alternative to PDRN because, as we know, PDRN is animal-derived. Plant-based PDRN is essentially just the biggest marketing gimmick ever because it's marketed as PDRN derived from plants like green tea, ginseng, and rose, but plants don't produce DNA that works anywhere near salmon DNA. The whole reason they chose salmon was because how similar it is to human DNA.
Yeah.
That was the whole point. I don't think
We're not that similar to a rose.
no, or a green tea plant. I wish though. I love green
Yeah.
tea. But yeah, so even if PDRN was a miracle ingredient, like a lot of people are saying it is, the only reason it would be that way is because it's coming from salmon. And so it's like 95 to 97% similar to human DNA.
Yeah.
So the ingredients in those plant-based products are usually using just like various things like antioxidants or like soothing ingredients, but they are definitionally not PDRN.
Yeah.
So it's just like a marketing gimmick.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. And then the last thing I will mention is, as we've said, PDRN is derived from salmon. And it's pretty hard to obtain because these fish only spawn during breeding season, which can make it really expensive because not only is it a one and done, but it's a one seasonally. Yeah. So as
Does
far...
it keep?
How does it store? Keep it on ice? I don't know. Hell.
You probably freeze it, I would assume.
Seriously. As far as I know, brands aren't using synthetic PDRN in their products. So if they are adding PDRN to like literally every single serum they have, they are working with something that is seasonally obtained. So there's a constraint there.
Yeah.
Are they actually putting the PDRN in there at an efficacious amount? Or are they actually even putting PDRN there in general?
Yeah.
Like you actually have no idea. My guess is that PDRN is one of those ingredients where they're putting it in there at 0.001% so that they can put it on the label and then they market it because theoretically it's extremely expensive to obtain.
Yeah.
Because any ingredient that is only produced seasonally and is also extremely popular is going to have a markup.
I think that if you're getting a PDRN product, you should also check the label for hyaluronic acid because I'd guess that that's what they're actually using.
Probably.
Which is fine. Not all hyaluronic acid is created equal.
No.
Like we said about molecule size, that plays a huge role in hyaluronic acid because you can have tons of different molecule sizes and that changes penetration quite drastically. I would guess there's a lot of crossover between like if it has PDRN in it, they're probably also using like high levels of glycerin and definitely like hyaluronic acid.
Yeah. And just like
Niacinamide.
soothing ingredients.
Yeah.
And I agree. We should look at some of the labels for different products. But we kind of hit on this already, but I don't want to be all doom and gloom about PDRN because like I mentioned, we don't have the studies to say that it works. We also don't have studies that say it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
could work.
I think it could work theoretically. And I think that there are a lot of people who've seen success with products with PDRN in it. Whether or not it's the PDRN doing that, who knows?
Yeah.
But one of the most reliable studies we have is on skin graft skin, which is compromised. So like we kind of mentioned before, I think there could be a case for saying that PDRN could help with injured skin or like post-procedure skin.
Yeah.
To like help soothe it and possibly accelerate the healing process. So maybe in theory, if you go and get like microneedling or a laser treatment or something, you could maybe apply a PDRN product and that could theoretically decrease healing time.
Yeah.
But I don't know that for sure. And I think there could be a place for PDRN in the cosmetic industry, but I just don't like how companies are taking this ingredient and just like running with it.
Yeah.
And saying that it heals every ailment.
Yeah.
Oh, it'll heal your depression. It's like
I'd try it.
running to go get some salmon sperm. You just put it on your face directly. So, based on what we know, is PDRN actually legit or is it a scam? It's not actually legit. At least not really.
Yeah.
I think that it's an ingredient that's marketed to be doing it all. The Chemist Confessions podcast, actually, she said it's like unicorn tears, which I think is a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
Every day there's a new claim surrounding PDRN, and it sort of just feels like that's happening because nobody really knows what it does. Because we don't have enough studies for it.
It can do whatever the other ingredients in the formula are doing.
True.
So
It can be hydrating. It can be soothing.
yeah.
When paired with hyaluronic acid.
Exactly. Or niacinamide.
Or allantoin. How do you say that? I say allantoin.
I also say allantoin.
I think it's wrong, but I'm not going to
Allantoin.
I personally feel like PDRN is just the trendiest ingredient right now, and something is going to eventually come along and take its place.
Hopefully something a little more sustainable.
I agree, and something that has some more studies behind it. So with that being said, there is a lot of value to real world experience. And we've talked a lot about how important reviews are and how sometimes something can work for you even if there isn't scientific evidence behind it. So to truly put PDRN products to the test, we have partnered with TNT over at This Not That Official. On her account, she tests a ton of different products, and she has certainly tested her fair share of cosmetics that contain PDRN. She has really done the boots on the ground research.
Oh, yeah.
She shared her list of products with us, and we're going to dig into the science behind them and see if our assessment of the products matches up with her experience of them. So go check out her page on Instagram. It's at This Not That Official, and you'll be able to see what we find.
Yeah.
We're so excited. Yeah.
It'll be so fun.
No, we're obsessed with her. She is one of our favorite Instagram pages.
Yeah. And she definitely does take it very seriously.
Yes.
Like, she is not just posting to post. If she's reviewing a product, she has tested the product and used it. And she also does a lot of like other stuff, you know, like she's a skincare fanatic.
Skincare, hair care, makeup.
Yeah.
And she is very good at giving like her genuine thoughts on a product, which I think is kind of rare these days.
Yeah. She's not afraid of burning bridges with companies.
No, which I think is such a slay.
Yeah.
We are obsessed with her. We love her. So go check her out on Instagram, and you can see kind of what we think about the PDRN products and what she thinks. And maybe it'll change our minds a little bit about PDRN. Maybe it won't. You'll just have to go check it out.
Cliffhanger.
You can also check out our Instagram page at BeautyXBeaker and the rest of our socials.
Yeah.
With the same handle.
Of course. We're also online at www.beautyxbeaker.com, which is where you can also find show notes for today's episode, as well as some sources. I'm looking at them right now. I know that they're here.
I got that bibliography ready to go.
They're sourced.
You can also follow us on Instagram. I'm at Sadie BXB.
And I'm not BXB. We're both posting.
I post once a month.
Yeah.
You post much more consistently. But
well,
go follow us both anyway.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I don't think I'll ever post a day in my life because I've recorded making a coffee 75 times. Never get past that.
Yeah.
But Sadie can. Sadie can post a day in the life because
sometimes
she can remember to record a full day's worth.
It's so hard. Like, you'll notice my clips getting shorter and shorter towards the end of the day.
And then I got home from work and then I went straight to bed, I guess.
Yep. And that was my day. Bye. Yeah. Anyway. Like, subscribe, share this episode with a friend.
Yes.
And leave a comment.
If you have a friend who is PDRN obsessed, maybe send them this episode and let them know that it might be a waste of their money.
Yeah. Or it might not.
Or it might not.
Send this episode to one friend and then leave a comment letting us know that you did.
Yeah. Let us know who you shared it with.
Yes.
And we'll reach out and say, hey, we heard that your friend wanted you to listen to us.
We're going to DM your friends.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? They're like, what the hell? These random girls just DM'd me.
I would.
Yeah, me too.
If
we
you
have
guys,
good time.
If you guys don't start sharing this podcast, I'm going to start DMing your friends and family.
It's just like really nice things. All right, but we'll see you guys next week for another episode. Until then, stay safe. Do your skincare.
Yeah, and consider what you're putting on your face.
Really think about it before you do. Okay, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.